Three, two. Hey, what's good, everybody? You know what it is. You know what it is. It's Dr. Jerry Dobie. We're back again with another live session. But today, the person I have in front of me today is an amazing individual. We're joined by a visionary who is reshaping the future of entertainment at its foundation. Richard DeVaughn is the co-founder and CEO of JARO Nexus LLC, the technology company empowering the disruptive platform you're going to know as JaroGO. With an engineering degree from Kettering University and an MBA from the MIT Sloan School of Management, he brings a rare combination of technical precision and strategic leadership to the creator economy. His career leading global operations and technology across China, India, Europe, and the US now fuels a platform that returns control, ownership, and revenue to creators. Richard's mission is transformational, and it's an honor to have you here today, man. Welcome, Richard.
Well, thank you, Jerry. Dr. Jerry, I should say. I'm glad to be here.
You can just call me Jerry, man. Just Jerry. We're good. We're just having a conversation, but thank you very much for the recognition.
Respect, Doc. Take it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right, man. So look, I've had my little say. I like to kick it off with an introspective from the inside looking out. Tell me how you see Richard DeVaughn.
Oh boy, yeah, from the inside out. Well, that's pretty tough. I never thought about that, but um, I see myself as someone who really cares about our community. You know, so at the end of the day, I've had a glorious, wonderful corporate career, lots of opportunities, lots of groundbreaking um, activities that took place during my career. First this, first that, and I've always wanted to bring folk along with me. And that's always been a challenge when you're in a technical environment because it's basically supply and demand type of situation.
Mhm.
But been fairly successful, and I have a passion to make a difference, in our community. Um, so if I think about it like that, that's important. From a moral standpoint, I really feel that we as a people need to be represented for who we are and what kinds of strengths we bring to society, particularly this U.S. society that we built and are a significant part of. So it's our country, we built it, et cetera. So I feel very strongly in that regard. So, uh, but I also know that we really haven't, um, you know, been able to share in the gains in the way that we should have or could
Mm.
have. And so at the end of the day, let's find a way to kind of level that playing field, or at least play our role in doing that. So that's kind of what from the inside out, I want to do my part to make a difference.
Okay, okay. Moving forward, your background spans global manufacturing, technology operations, and product development.
Mm.
What early experiences shaped the way you think about building systems and solving problems at scale?
Well, I mean, I had to get a little technical to a point, but I went to a school that was an engineering school. It was a co-op school.
Mm.
And back in the day, it was called General Motors Institute when I was attending school
Mm.
in Flint, Michigan. And that basically meant that you spent, um, and at the time we were used 6 months of education, 6 months working, 12-month learning semesters, and they were divided by work. You go, which was kind of an interesting, different way to do things. But however, over that 5-year period, I did have an opportunity to kind of learn what work was. And I also had an opportunity to learn what I liked and didn't like,
Mm.
so that when graduation time came, I was kind of focused on the areas that, that I thought there were opportunities. And of course, for us at the time, they were trying to pigeonhole us to certain activities that kind of limited our uh, our growth. But the good news was because I was able to see all the functions and how all the business activities came together, I knew not to get myself pigeonholed. And
Mm.
so that was one of the reasons why I left General Motors and took a job outside of GM because I could see myself being pushed into a corner that I think would have been limiting for me from a career standpoint.
Mm.
And it was a good thing I did that. I liked working there, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the best. So what that allowed me to do is kind of think more systematically about how things come together,
Mm.
you know,
Okay.
because I know as time went on, there's two types of folks out there, right? People that think transactionally and people that think systematically.
Mm.
And given, AI is a very systematic tool. You think about where, the future of entertainment and creativity is very systematic in terms of where it's going in the future. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of pull all those pieces together and work the transactional pieces to our advantage.
Mm. I remember when I was growing up, GM and Chrysler as well were the first to have these management schools and to bring people through to learn their systems and be prepared to go to work inside of General Motors and for us, you know, uh, people of color, that was a rare opportunity. It was massive. I remember, hearing about this during my military career, and I'm like, man, really? They're training managers. They're training people to be in their system. And then I had learned about the Kobun system in Japan
Hmm.
with the elementary school, the middle school, the university, all of that developed designed to pipeline you into Mitsubishi or Toyota or the Nisei industry structure. I'm going, okay, America's taken a page out of Asia, Japan's playbook to prepare people for specific functions and legacy jobs, things like that, where it can be family oriented. I mean, the whole school systems and everything designed. So amazing. So you worked internationally after GM and you moved on and you started stuff. You worked internationally across China, India, and Eastern Europe. Now, Eastern Europe, that's a big nugget. People don't understand about the Eastern Bloc because they don't have to deal with it. But working in Eastern Europe was a different beast. I think the closest people might be able to uh, relate that to is like trying to work in China, with the government system and the political system. How did leading operations in such different environments influence the way you approach innovation today? You had to be a creative thinker. That Eastern Bloc is sticking with me.
Well, there's some differences between, I did, when you think about the US, you think about Eastern Europe, you think about Western Europe, and you think about China and India. And the reality is innovation is kind of universal, you know. And you think about Eastern Europe, you think about the discipline and the rigidity. You being in the military, you kind of know how the Russians think. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that carried over in terms of the way they thought about things. But the very innovative people, very smart people,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and really wanting to satisfy. So when it comes to innovation within those various sectors, I'll say like the Eastern European piece, like I'll say the Czech Republic organization that we put in place there. Um, I think innovation was more on the R&D side. They like to play in the sandbox
Mm-hmm.
and they like to have a lot of ideals. That where they were weak was on the commercialization side, which is something that I brought to the party coming from the States. Was that okay? We can work on these great ideals, but at what point are we going to commercialize it? I remember having a conversation with the head of the tech center that we had in Czech Republic, um, and asked him. I says, "Well, these are really great ideas, but what's the commercialization plan?" And
Mm-hmm.
he looked at me like with deer in headlights.
Mm-hmm.
But his job wasn't to commercialize. His job was to was was to play in the sandbox. So I had to spend time, just kind of developing and working with those types of teams
Mm,
on the commercial side. Whereas, like in places like India, very innovative, but they didn't really have great at that time. Didn't have great commercialization skills as well, but they
mm,
did have localized development capabilities. They developed products for those local markets.
mm,
So that was a whole nother a different culture that I had to deal with. Again, very smart people, very innovative people. Everybody's wanting to please, and that's how it works. The Chinese, on the other hand, they wanted to learn. You
mm,
know,
mm,
um, very good at doing stuff. But when it came to the purpose of what you were doing, it was kind of questionable from their perspective. They made it look perfect, but it didn't necessarily work perfect, you know. And some of that was okay for that market because, the life cycle for a lot of products were short.
mm,
But if they were exporting products outside of China, it was problematic. So in other words, you might get crap, you know, and
mm,
you understand. So I mean, so you just really had to understand how to deal with all those different uh, cultures. I'll say innovation cultures based on where they are,
mm,
and that worked well for me. I mean, so I can tell you the story after story, but it probably takes more time than we need to get into. But um, anyway, so there's a balance required based on where you are, what the culture of innovation is, and and what their priorities are. But there's some commonality in terms of they're very creative. Everybody has a level of creativity. It's just a matter of how you leverage that.
mm. I'm going to relate the entertainment industry and young creators to those situations, Eastern Bloc and China, where ideation is they're good at the ideation part, but the commercialization and the why to do it in a specific can be questions, that get deeper than this is the best way to do it. It becomes a spiritual and mental and, are we rebelling? And, it's like, oh my God, it's like Chopin being ostracized by, the Royal Orchestra because he wrote, you know, differently than what they thought in the structure stuff. But so here we have JaroGO now, where you're applying that uh, teaching method to say, this is why you should do this. This is how you do it. And this is how you keep your money. Get first count on your money. So before JaroGO, you were like building these massive systems for major brands.
Mhm.
And so between your engineering foundation and your MBA from MIT Sloan, when did you first recognize that the creator economy and the global streaming landscape were primed for disruption?
Well, I retired from corporate probably, let's see, I'd say in 2012.
Mhm.
Even though I don't look like it, but but I
You're looking
retired.
good. It don't crack. It don't crack.
Looking good, look good. I got to admit, but I retired from the corporate life in 2012, and I started my own consulting entity. And
Mhm.
out of that, I ran. I was presented an opportunity to engage in this business with some fellows that were very, very much interested in starting a streaming platform. The
Mhm.
time the technology wasn't as uh, developed as it is now, so there was a lot of coding and stuff like that you had to do. It was pretty complicated.
Mhm.
But as time went on, I started getting engaged with Lynn Gibson and the Peachtree Village uh, International Film Festival as a sponsor
Mhm.
for the short film category. And then as I started understanding how short films were made and how filmmakers operate and what their priorities are, I said, well, these people are like artists.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
said, it says at the end of the day, most filmmakers are artists, who love their craft, and they're not necessarily getting rewarded for the craft, and some aren't necessarily looking for reward for the craft.
Mhm.
What they're looking for is the ability to continue to craft. You know, just like anywhere. If you're a fine painter, you want to, you know, what's your goal? You know, you want to paint. You
Mm-hmm.
want, you want the canvases and the paints, and you want your creativity to come out, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so and it's not a lot different than that for filmmakers,
Okay.
you know, and people in the craft. They're in the same situation. Um, but at the end of the day, the disruption opportunity really came in terms of, you know, when you had conversations with folks, it's like, yes, I want to make money. Yes, I like to advance my career, but the number one thing I want to do is create.
Mm-hmm.
I want to create and lead the marketing and advancing myself and advancing my product somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you've probably got hundreds of thousands of hours of untapped, beautiful content that's sitting on the shelves. And they're hung up in the system of what it takes to advance that, and they're not doing it very well.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity is, from a disruptive standpoint, is, well, how do you kind of equalize the playing field so that that group has an opportunity uh, to advance not only themselves, but in their craft, in their interests, in their product. How do they do that in a way that allows them to come back and play again? Right? You know, you think about artists, and artists will paint, paint, paint until the paint's gone, and then when they run out of paint, what do? They gather up paintings, they take them to the art show, and they sell a few till they can buy more stuff, and then they start painting again. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the musicians, I mean the filmmakers do basically the same type of thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they scramble around, they figure out a way to get projects. I've you know, I know that when I give a filmmaker some money, I got a few that I like, you know, that are friends and young and ambitious, and I want to support their ambitions. But I know if I invest in their project, the odds of me getting any return on that is zero to none. But it's for them, and but I
Mm-hmm.
know that when I do it, right? But now what we need to do, in my view, is find a way for those that are very innovative, very crafty, very good, to find a way to, you know, to take it to the next level. And so we know that's what our platform is designed to do.
I like that. I like that because I am one of those. Like, oh, you do a podcast. How come you're not getting any money? I don't know how to monetize this stuff. I'm just doing what I do,
Because you like
and
it, right?
I like it. This
Yeah,
is me. This is
there's
me.
nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
And you're describing what I've known as the accordion effect. Hurry up, catch up. Hurry up, catch up. Like in formation when you're marching, the guys in the front get too fast, and the guys with the short legs in the back have to run, and so it's always, you know, expanding, contracting, expand, contract, the accordion effect. And so what I understand Jaro Go to be doing is to, you know, it's as a one-stop shop, providing everybody an opportunity to have a centralized focus point for their stuff. You know, many people see the creator economy just as entertainment, as I just described myself. I'm just doing it. Your lens is more infrastructure and economics. So, was there a benchmark moment that you realized creators needed a fundamentally different kind of platform?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I'll say a benchmark moment, but there's certainly need. You know, as we start planning, well, why is it that, you know, why is there resistance to doing to working to I'll say to like allowing your content to be displayed. I always wonder what, you know, what's the resistance there,
Hmm.
right? And that was always befuddling to me. That came to light, for example, when we were judging films for the short film competition. We would judge maybe 100 films, you know, a group of 4 or 5 people, or 3 or 4 people, sometimes 2 people. But we go through and have to look at all these movies, and some are really, really fantastically done. And but you say, okay, and so you say, well, hey, you know, we would like to take and um, you know, screen your product online so that people can have an opportunity to see you and your work.
Hmm.
And there was tremendous resistance to that in some cases. Some people were very, very open to it, but a lot of people that had really good content weren't. I'm protecting my baby. But what happens, they get hung up in the system. The system says that there's a way to do this, right? And you think about it from a broader perspective. I've created this movie. Success is measured by a theatrical release, but the odds are, it's kind of like all the basketball players that are going to make the NBA.
Right, right.
From high school, I mean, how many are really going to make the NBA when there's tens of thousands of them trying to get a couple hundred spots? It's
Right.
just not going to happen. So what do you do for that group? How do you distinguish yourself? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what I thought that where the disruptive opportunity would come in would be allowing them an avenue to distinguish themselves from the crowd. Now everybody's not going to win, but and all content is not equal, but there's some really great, great, great content
Right.
out there that, man, you say, boy, if this was on a platform, a lot of people won't put it out there because because they're hung up in the system.
Right.
I'll leave it like that, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's good enough. Uh, Beautiful thing, you know, a lot of times, the street artists and things make most of their money, going direct to consumer,
Mhm.
selling out the trunk, so to speak. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But they're all over the place. You got to go to Art Basel in Miami or in the downtown LA system. You're in Maryland or whatever, and you spend more money than you make. So, or you spend all the money you make in transportation costs,
Yeah.
plus, just operating costs. And on top of that, if you get into another system, oftentimes that system wants to take the lion's share, as we're
Absolutely.
seeing. Um, and now we have this announcement that Netflix has just bought Warner Brothers, which encompasses, some major brands
Hmm.
and the distribution point, which once again lessens money for the creators. But JaroGo empowers creators to retain up to 80% of their revenue
Yeah.
and 100% of their IP. Um,
Yes.
why was creator ownership such a like non-negotiable part of your vision? I'm listening to the integrity that you're like, I'm giving, even though I know I'm not going to get this bread back, but I'm going to give these opportunities. So talk to me about that.
Well, there's a couple things. I think when it comes to IP, I understand that's a core issue with folk, right? Because why do you want to give up your hard work, what you've spent hours and days and months and years developing,
Mm,
for $3,000 to be on Netflix,
mhm,
right? Or I'm not sure what they pay, but it just
mm,
depends on what it is, but it's not going to be that much. And so what we would really prefer to see would be to have a situation where we did a financial model. A financial model says that we're not greedy at the end of the
mm,
day. We don't have huge overhead like Netflix and those guys. We don't have the strategic issues that Netflix has relative to content acquisition. Netflix is, one reason why they would acquire Warner Brothers would surely be because they need to have a content library,
mhm,
right? They need something that relieves them from the grip of Disney, for example. If they want Black Panther, they got to get it from Disney to show it on their platform. Disney's going to nail them for it. They got to pay,
mhm,
you know. So
mhm,
they need their own. It just makes sense from a survival standpoint, long term for them. The other thing it allows them to do is solidify their subscription model. So that's
mhm,
important for them. So they've got some very strategic reasons, and plus other things I probably don't know. I'm just guessing, but other reasons why they're doing it. But I would suspect it's those two things. They got a huge installed audience. They got a subscription. They're paying money every month. They want to make sure that keeps coming in, and they want to make sure they control the cost of content.
mhm,
And if they figured out a way for Warner to be self-sustaining, et cetera, that works out good for them.
mhm,
But from the creator standpoint, IP is important for them,
mhm,
because now in our situation, we want to be in a position where as a company that if we do are able to green light and invest in projects, that we would own a piece of the projects and a piece of the benefit, because we're going to not only support them from a marketing and personal branding standpoint, but our goal is to also support getting them to the Netflix and the Tubies and all these other folks in the world from a distribution standpoint. We should be able to support them in doing that, make their content more valuable. The other thing our platform allows them to do from an IP standpoint is to kind of build their personal brand. Building your personal brand is important. So if they can build their personal brand, and that means that I'm a certain type of filmmaker, producer, actor, or whatever in the community, then they're even more valuable. And our platform allows them to more or less demonstrate who they are in an environment where it's where the type of content that they produce is well accepted. And we should, given the data engine that we're putting together, we should be able to give them ammunition to take that product and be in a more powerful position as to negotiate better deals with some of these other platforms.
I in reviewing, I kind of equate the similarities with Bandcamp, where music artists go, or Beatport, where producers and DJs go to put their products, giving it a central focus, a hub, if you will. The problem there being is that those platforms aren't actively, promoting their creators and their rosters. You can buy into like co-op marketing programs and things like that. But what I'm understanding you to say is that you made those types of activities native inside the JaroGO platform. The additional marketing, you have marketplace, where they can it's right there. You know what I mean? And then I have been reading your missives on JaroGO about the economics and structure and how to build sustainable growth, and how to generational wealth. And you kind of said that JaroGO isn't just a platform, but an ecosystem.
Yes.
So in your words, what makes JaroGO fundamentally different from traditional social platforms and streaming services?
Well, again, you hit the nail on the head when you said it's an ecosystem. I think most social media platforms are, I'll say, transactional, and for the most part. The goal of most social media is to get exposure to that individual and their content, right? And then the way you measure success is by the number of eyeballs and the likes and the data surrounding the impact that you have. So bigger the number, the better you are. I think that the big difference for us is, we have those same capabilities because that's important to people, right? From the social media standpoint. So we have all of those same capabilities in terms of, what you would get from Facebook and IG and TikTok, et cetera, and the types of data that roll up in there. But the difference is our goal is to meet each individual creator kind of where they are.
Okay.
Right? Because you got folks that have different agendas. They have different content offerings. They have different goals of what they're trying to do. Those type of things. Some people are just trying to express themselves, and others are trying to monetize themselves. Others are trying to do both. So we're providing an ecosystem that allows them to do all of that. And so when I say meet them where they are, we got the social media piece. They can post, they can build audience, but it allows them to do the work that they do on other platforms. They can do it on our platform, but they can also continue on these other platforms if they so desire. So there's a lot of room there. But in addition to that, we allow them the types of tools that allow them to better express who they are. For example, we have exclusive access to that particular creator built in. So if they want, and they can design that based on who they are. Like if it's the Dr. Jerry Adobe podcast, where Dr. Jerry Adobe may have a super fan base that's willing to subscribe, outside of tokenizing.
Mm-hmm.
They may be able to subscribe to some of some of the core things that you offer, periodically, and you can set the cost for that, based on what you believe your fans are willing to pay and what they would appreciate, because they won't pay if they don't like it, obviously.
Right, right, right.
The other thing is that you can also, have other avenues to monetize yourself. Like a lot of folks, merch is a big deal. I never thought about that before, but everywhere I look, merch is a big deal, and it's also another way of creativity, another way to, kind of how you refinance doing what you love.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, and maybe make some money at the same time. So you got, so people that create unique merch, we had the opportunity for them to create an environment within our platform that allows them to either join our store that we would have as an anchor store, or they can create their own store within the platform. We have a content management system that allows that, so that's different. And obviously there's guidelines around it, but those are the kind of things that we have. The other opportunities that we not only have a social media aspect, but for example, for filmmakers, we have the ability to stream and distribute product, whether that's transactional video on demand or whether that's AVOD based.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that we do, because we're looking at sponsorship, endorsements, and advertising revenue and other income streams, that our philosophy is that the majority of that must go back to the creators because they're the basis of it.
Mm-hmm.
And financially, it can work well for us because, like I said, we don't have all that overhead,
Mm-hmm.
and so it should work to their advantage, to build themselves out. And so we provide a lot of opportunities for them to do that, whether it's social media, merch, um, other hubs and portals like our entertainment hubs. We got, potential gaming opportunities and other things like that. But we have a lot of areas that, again, we meet each creator where they are.
And you do have a list of podcasts. You have currently, I've watched a few, and I like that you have the free, like the Jacquees documentary. I like the
Mm-hmm.
Naomi
Mm-hmm.
piece, and then the Baltimore, is it
Also,
Baltimore Hustle.
mm-hmm.
It's reasonably priced to rent that. It's same as you would $4.99 to rent that full feature length film.
Yes,
Uh, and then if you want to download it into your database to have permanent, it's $10.99.
that's right.
You can't go get a freaking DVD for $10.99 and own it anymore. It's $20, $30. You know what I mean?
We're less than the cost of popcorn at the movie theater. Let me
That's
just
what
say, yeah,
I'm talking about. Yeah,
yeah.
that combo, that $17 combo to get you a small popcorn and a regular size drink and
Yeah.
maybe some jujubes, maybe, you know what I mean? Um, just to recap, we're talking about, as evidenced by Netflix, which is one of the premier streaming platforms uh,
Oh.
for film and television, and they're getting eaten up by Tubi because they're getting independent films and they buying collections off of the Creative Commons, roster and things like that. So JaroGo, you guys at JaroGo, you, Lynn and Wayne, you're merging the $250 billion creator economy with global streaming. Two
Hmm.
worlds that, rarely work together. What challenges, since you're the creator, you're the design guy, right? What challenges did you face in bridging those models, and how did your operational background kind of prepare you for this shift? This is a whole different beast.
Well, I tell you, I mean, not to. One of the things I think that differentiated me in my career is that I was more a systemic thinker,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be careful when you think systematically in a company because most people think transactionally. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, you do this, you get that, you do this, you get that. And if you start thinking about, well, what if we start doing this and that? What's the implications of doing action A on action Z? Right. And they say, well, we don't worry about action Z. That's not our responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And what you should, but the difference in the way that we put together the whole JaroGO platform was, well, because we need to think about how all the pieces work together
Right.
and what are the implications and what are the opportunities based on what the customer wants, based on the user experience, based on the creator requirements. All these things need to work together. And so that's what really drove that. And so when I worked from a technology standpoint with our tech team, that was my primary goal was to really try to see how all these people, how all these parts can best integrate to serve basically three masters, right? One, the creators, you know, two, the market, and three, ourselves, in terms of as a business. So, so when anything that we did had to kind of make sure that those pieces were one, identified the implications of it, and two, that they were, and whatever implications we did identify, that and issues associated gaps, that we were able to close them. So that's kind of what the philosophy is, and everybody can't do that.
Right.
They say, well, are you worried about people copying? No, well, yeah, they can copy what they see, but they can't copy the strategic intent. It's not
Mm.
easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's really what drives the differentiation, and I'm not really worried about what some of these other folk are doing. I mean, when it comes to like the Netflix of the world, we can't compete with Netflix head to head. That's not what we're trying to do. That's not the product we're offering.
Mm.
We look at ourselves as the pipeline for folks that need that for Netflix, right? You
Mm.
know, so we look at ourselves as providing, opportunities for our influencers and creators to better build their brand across other social media platforms. For filmmakers and musicians, et cetera. We want to accommodate them becoming bigger and better than what they are. There's a niche for that.
Mm.
So we're playing that role,
Mm.
and so we're supportive of the creator economy, not in a driver of it, versus um, going head to head with these giants, because we can't win against them, not yet.
Yeah. A lot of people forget, they say entertainment business, and I look at it as the business of entertainment. Um, Apples and oranges, tomato, but in execution and mindset, when you're mind mapping out
Hmm.
a product and how you're going to deliver it, um, there are a lot of things to think about. So your experience includes governance, investment, and board leadership across multiple sectors.
Hmm.
How do you how have your advisory roles shaped the financial model and long-term sustainability of JaroGo?
Well, when I think about my experience in the financial model, um, actually, it's terrible for me to say this at times, but I say, building a financial model is too important to leave to the financial experts. And
Okay, okay.
but I say that jokingly, because I do need them to confirm it. But I'd say that I'd say technical and analytical and MBA experience kind of converge to actually allow me to, because I understand numbers, and I understand strategy, and I understand technology, and I understand what can work and what can't work. I understand risk, you know, I understand sensitivity, and then different ways to analyze it. So when I put together a financial model, that model accounts for different scenarios, and I can adjust those scenarios to best case, worst case. And I try to, establish the possibilities based on mostly worst case. And
Mm,
if it works out and it still looks good, then there's a good possibility we can make something out of this, right?
mm,
And so that's what drives that. The other thing that I throw into a financial model based on experience is that we really need to take a look at various, I'll say, verticals of revenue opportunities,
mm,
right? And that's why we set up an ecosystem, or you might say, like, well, AWS is probably or Amazon is probably does this better than anybody. You know, you say, well, why does Amazon? Why do they own Whole Foods? What's that got to do with anything, right?
Mm,
You know, why do they do books? Why are they shipping stuff? Why? Well, it all ties into a common theme for them, right? And that common theme is we'll do anything as long as it keeps our customers satisfied. As
mm,
long, so that's, if we can provide a service that our customers appreciate and want, then we should do it, right? So they're the
absolutely.
classic example of that. And of course they got criteria, but for the most part, if the customers want it and need it and they can justify it fitting into their ecosystem, why not do it? And so we have to have the same kind of mentality in doing this. And most businesses don't do that. So when we look at, financial models and revenue verticals and product offerings, you have to look at it from a broader perspective. Is this something that's going to address the creator economy, which is what we're focused on? And if it doesn't address this pending creator economy, then why are we doing it, right?
Mm,
And that's where we see the need.
okay. Reminds me, when you're talking about verticals and whatnot, you know, why are you doing this and why are you doing that? Well, I don't know. Uh, why does Shaq own financial? Why does he own food stores? Why is he owning, an insurance company? Why is he, owning Reebok? Why does he? Duh. You got to have your hands in a lot of pots where you can influence the marketplace
Yeah,
and provide reasonable, reasonably priced product to the end user, but also for the creator, the designer, all those people that, are part of the creator economy, because now fashion is part of that. You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? What's in the movie? What's the product placement? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And who are, like what do they have? Product characters. I was like, what the hell is a product character? Okay, now I figured it out. You know what I mean? So you're talking about business. Now, folks, I didn't mention this earlier. We're talking about business and finances, and these are not tabletop, dining room table discussions that the average melanated family has. But what makes Richard Mr. DeVaughn so special? Well, founded and runs Reinvent Your Capital. So he knows where to get the money, how to get you the money, and it can help you put it in play the right way if you're nice. You can get some mentorship behind that money too. You know what I mean? Um, the NACD. Now, I don't remember what NAC stands for, but you're plugged in into innovation and governance at a really high level. Um, First, I would like to know what NACD, remind me of that, what that means, and then tell me what trends you're seeing in tech and investment that creators should be paying attention to. Disclaimer, this is not financial advice, anyone.
Don't worry, you won't get much. But NACD is the National Association of Corporate Directors. And I'm on the board for the NACD for the Carolinas region. And I've been on the board for 6 years. So actually, matter of fact, at the end of this year, my term will be ending on the board. And I serve as like the program chair for major programs that are for directors that are from the Carolinas region, talking Charlotte and down to South Carolina, the whole works. Um, Board members of Fortune 500 are in nonprofits and private companies um, that reside in this region. And so we put together, I'll say monthly programs, actually very good programs. It's from a trend standpoint, uh, AI is a big deal.
Mhm.
Cybersecurity is a big deal. Uh, Geopolitical risk associated with the craziness going on in Washington, D.C., what the companies have to do when it comes to all this tariff crap.
Mm-hmm.
And if it impacts some companies more than others, but all of them are impacted by the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And so really what it breaks down is what kind of discussions are being held within the boardrooms of these companies, and what can other board members learn from the experiences that different companies have. And so we would set up like panel discussions and things like that with people with real case studies from expert. We'll have like expertise from Deloitte or somewhere like that, and they would be like they would more or less facilitate it. Then we would have like three directors from major corporations that would get up and give their thoughts on a specific topic, depending on what it is, right? And whether that could be succession planning for the senior executives, for the CEO, or it could be, having a discussion on what do you do to mitigate cybersecurity attacks within companies, which happens a lot more than you know about, but it happens. Do you pay the bribery, or do you, do you pay, or do you ignore it? But you can't ignore it, unfortunately. And so some have to make decisions that they don't like. So how do you handle stuff like that? What's the future of AI? How is AI going to impact our business going forward? What's the geopolitical risk to our supply chain? So there's a lot of things that when it comes to the NACD that I have a lot of broad exposure to because of my total background, corporate background, and suite environment background. So and also I serve on some boards where we talk about some of these things. I think internally, I'm on a board of a company that does work with the government. So obviously, with all the doji cuts and all the crap that was going on there, we have to be, have to take into account the implications of all of that, and what it means, to the company going forward, and what our strategies are to diversify and to penetrate even more, within the government. So there's a lot of things that we do there. And let's see, I think you were asking about reinventure. The other area that, since I retired, have been involved with has been private equity as well as venture capital funding. I got involved, again, networking is really key, but I got involved with private equity because of friends that, associates that I have friends and associates that I've made over the years that actually asked me to come in and make an assessment on the value of the product portfolio for a company they were thinking about acquiring or investing in. And I went in and did that for free, really. Just did I could have charged, but I just did it for free. And because my buddy asked me to, I said, hey, I can come in a couple of days and take a look at that and take a look at their stuff and interview some folks. And I did that, wrote up a report, gave it back to them. Next thing you know, they called me back and said, hey, we really like what you did. Can you join our board? You see what I'm saying? It's the way, it's like, yeah, I mean, I could have said, hey, y'all give me some thousands of dollars and I'll do this report, et cetera. But, but once they did the acquisition and I had an understanding of that company, they asked me to join the board. I was on the board until, we decided until that, that met its objectives and, was divested from the PE firm. So that was one. And that was really great experience for me from a private board standpoint, et cetera. And then the reinventure piece, I got involved with Reinventure Capital. Still is, and very successful venture capital company. It's Black owned, Black controlled, financing minority and women businesses. Is what the primary goal is, to make sure that. But there's pretty selective criteria. Well, if it's selective, but there's criteria around what types of companies that we would be putting funds into. So in that business, I serve as a general partner, but I also get engaged with some of the due diligence around which companies that we will fund and maybe which ones we might not. At least I might make a recommendation. Doesn't mean that we won't get funded, but sometimes I might make a recommendation that we might be cautious or that we should do something, and either usually if I feel strongly enough about it, it's important. So anyway, so that's what I do. And so we're raising another fund. because the first fund was so successful. And so we'll continue to do that. And I think the second fund is going to be twice as much as the first fund. We supported about 12 or 13 businesses, and most of them are doing really well. And so the next round is going to do something similar, except we're going to be able to do it at a higher level.
Okay.
So things like that. So do a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, y'all don't know how exciting it is for me to talk to this man. The finance part, I've always been confused. First of all, I couldn't pass math. I got a D in algebra. I had no understanding of what statistics were going to do because I didn't know a darn thing about AI. I didn't know anything about, and in college I was resistant. So I got a D in algebra at the university, and they're like, well, you passed, but would you like to take it again? I said, did I pass? Yeah. I said, I'm done, buddy. I'm not gonna do it again. And so now to be able to have a conversation with someone who understands all of that and can talk to numbers the way that I talk to periods and commas and semicolons is it's cool. And then, I get to read his stuff daily, and I'm a daily reader of the Richard DeVaughn missives on JaroGO, which I really believe um, is an amazing, amazing platform. We're going to talk more about it later. We have some exciting things to talk about. Now, building JaroGO, like you said, there were. It's like a song that was written 5 years ago that's
Mm,
perfectly timely on release. You
mhm.
know, um, so you've built companies through phases of rapid revenue and profit growth. We're talking about creatives here. So what business principles do you believe that creators have to adopt if they want to become creator entrepreneurs?
Mm, that's a good question. Well, at the end of the day, I think, one of the business principles that's really most important is really understand what your audience wants, right?
Mm,
And how you're positioned to satisfy the unmet needs of audiences.
mm,
You know, one of the, I think one of the most insightful strategic sessions that we had, over the years, we always had people come in, to teach you different techniques that typically are renamed and warmed over stuff, but for the most part. But at the end of the day, um, there was one that was kind of stuck with me, like called Blue Ocean
mm,
strategy, right?
mm, mm, mm,
And
mm,
the whole principle behind the Blue Ocean is that, every business is a growth business.
mm,
You just have to know, you just have to understand where the uh, where the opportunities are. Otherwise, you'll be playing in the bloody red ocean,
mm,
right?
mm.
And if you're in the bloody red ocean, that means that if you're jumping around in there, guess what blood attracts, right?
Sharks.
Sharks. So you got to figure out how to how to differentiate yourself in a way that allows you to play in the blue ocean.
Mm,
And
mm,
right now, this creator economy is a blue ocean opportunity.
mm,
So you have a lot of people out there that are very innovative. They're leveraging AI,
mm,
uh, but at the end of the day, it's really about your personal creativity and how you can leverage these tools that don't fight the tools, make
mm.
the tools your friend,
There you go.
you know? And so, I would suggest that make the tool your friend. Don't fight the inevitable because you'll just be left behind. You know, it'd be 1990 and you're little Richard trying to sing, bop bop whatever he used to sing back in the 50s, and yeah, I guess the equivalent is 2020, and I can't tell you who's who for 2020,
Mm.
2025, and 2000. All that's beyond me. That
Right, right.
Jerry's
So
left, but
I'm with you. I'm with you.
but you know what I'm saying. But
Mhm.
all I'm saying is you get left behind. So the whole idea. So from a business standpoint, you really need to understand where where the market trends are. You need to understand how to leverage technology. When I say technology, that includes social media, that includes AI. You just have to be, how do you differentiate yourself? And it just can't be because you're putting, some people can get away with, creating a personality on social media. That can work for some,
Mm.
but you really have to become a brand in and of yourself.
That part.
You
That
know, I
part.
always told, I told my niece who's a doctor,
Mm.
and I told her, I says, well, she's an entertainment type doctor,
Mm.
and I says, well, you have to become the brand if that's the case,
Mm.
you
Mm.
become the Dr. Phil or somebody like that if that's what you're a proponent of, and so become the brand, and once you become the brand, then it's a matter of maintaining and staying in touch. Uh, one thing that one thing that I think that can help a lot of creators that once they start getting positive traction is to stay focused on what got them there and what it's going to take to keep them there.
Mm. Mhm.
And that's one thing that we're offering within our platform is the ability to assess, at least from a data standpoint,
Mm.
how well what's working for an individual.
Mm.
Is your content resonating with the audience? You know, uh, who's looking at your stuff? What should you be doing more of?
Mm.
What could you be doing more of? What should you be doing less of?
Mm.
How are you positioned relative to the trends? Because everybody's going to, you might get satisfied. Next thing you know, you say, what happened to me? Right. So
Mm.
anyway, so that I think that's important.
I think that's beautiful. And while we're getting your mentorship for free, I think I admitted early on, I know how to create the interviews and the podcasts and the content, but the monetization part, turning from a journalist to a creator, it's a whole different beast. Like you said, the creator economy is booming, but it's also pretty chaotic, you know, right now. What misconceptions do you think creators have about monetization, ownership, and long-term stability?
Uh, I think the average creator is probably not overly trusting of the system, probably with good reason. I mean, you look at like say Netflix is trying to gobble up all but the content, they're trying to protect their position. These are large enterprises that they are motivated by by satisfying their shareholders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they look at you as a creator as a commodity that's endless supply. And unfortunately, there's some truth to some of that,
Mm-hmm.
because our community are endless suppliers of creative people. I mean, that's just
Is
the
what it is.
reality of
Right.
it. And so, because of that, you have a tendency to get exploited. Um, so, in terms of a misconception, I I think that if you get too hung up in the system in terms of how things are done
Mm-hmm.
or should be done, you're going to get screwed. I mean, I hate to say it, you're just going you're
Yeah.
maybe sub-optimizing. Let's put it that way. So I think right now, everybody's trying to figure out the best path forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that if you're an innovator, um, you really need to kind of step back and take a hard look at what's working for other folks and what could work for you.
Mm.
And that's what I would strongly advise that, because if you don't, you'll be following, or you're subjective. The big boys they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out how to kind of rein it back in so they can control it. Right now, the creator economy is not their friend.
Right. Right.
They don't necessarily want everybody to, because if it's going to distract away from what they're doing. So the one big misconception might be that you're really more valuable than you think you are.
Mm.
You know?
Get over you. You know what? Certain situations will make you, fall into the imposter syndrome trap.
Mm-hmm.
that you have to really fight your way out of. Um, and then, you have others who are just copycatting because it's worked for someone else, and
Mm-hmm.
and they're in the cookie cutter, but it's not necessarily authentic to the creator. You know what
That's
I
right.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So JaroGo emphasizes authenticity while offering premium content, living side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great opportunity for the creator to connect with the audience on a different level. How do you see audience behavior? Now, this is probably some around the corner thinking um, but how do you see audience behavior shifting when creators finally control both their narratives and their distribution?
Well, I see. Well, the audience really is at the end of the day. That's what they say. Uh, Content is king, but creators reign. Right.
Yeah, I think it's
So
changed to that. Yeah, I added that part.
the reason why they reign is because the audience is resonating with them.
Mm,
They're creating super fans,
mm,
and the fans they aren't that gentle. They're either like you or they don't.
mm,
And so the audience behavior in your success is really up to the efforts you put into satisfying them,
mm,
right?
mm,
I mean, you got, some folks that got highly engaged fans that want to see everything this person puts out every day because they put out a good word every day. It might
mm,
just be 15 lines,
mm,
but it's something people look forward to.
mm,
You somehow resonated with the group and you created a super fan base.
mm,
So the ideal is for you is to, as a creator, is to understand who your super fan base is, right?
mm.
And how you resonate with them and how you build that, right? And how you stay in tune with what they want. So I mean, that's what I would say. Be the response to that.
Mm.
You know?
So I appreciate your patience with me. I only got a few more questions, and I thank you. Um, Very valuable. I have learned a lot. I'm sitting in a master class that I probably would have paid, 70, $80,000 for.
I,
You know,
I better put you on my exclusive access. I
hey,
wouldn't charge you but 99. I wouldn't charge you but 99 cents, but that's
now
okay.
I'd pay it. I don't care. I'd pay it. This
Yeah.
is this is this conversation. You know, thank you for turning it into a conversation as opposed to an interview. Uh, I'm really honored by that. And once again, thank you for your patience. We've listed out all of your responsibilities, and here you spent, a little just beyond an hour with me thus far, and I'm not quite done with you yet. Just a few more questions. Thank you for your patience. You've led teams across multiple cultures and industries. So, you're definitely a master at cross-cultural competency and communication. Now, you're bringing, those leadership principles over to JaroGo. Do you have any particular leadership principles that guide you as you're building this company that's designed for global creator communities?
Yes. I mean, I haven't thought about that hard, but the answer is yes. I do have basic leadership principles that I follow.
Mhm,
One, since I deal with a creative community, whether it's in engineering or R&D or product development,
mhm,
um, the principle there is that there are always key individuals that need to be uncovered, I'll say, in the organization that brings something to the party.
mhm,
And the key is that you have to have a good sense of that.
mhm,
Sometimes it's intuition, but at the end of the day, it's about listening
mhm,
and about identifying what you believe to be important. You know, someone that gets it. I'd rather work with someone that systematically gets what I'm talking about than someone who transactionally can execute. There's a role for both of them.
mhm,
Don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to put the transactional guy in a significant role in my organization.
Mm.
I think that leadership requires you to think systematically about how things come together,
Mm.
you know, and
Mm.
your job is to orchestrate as a leader. Your job is to orchestrate the complex pieces of what it takes to be successful together. And not a lot of people can do that. I'll say it over and over again. That's why they're always looking for new CEOs. And you need a leader for the moment. The one you had might have been great for that moment, then things changed, right?
Mm.
AI came to play, and they don't know how to change, to think about their business in a more broader perspective. So now we need to find someone who can think about the business in a different way. So we got to make a change, right?
Mm.
Those kind of things. So um, I feel I'm pretty good at that, from leadership. The other piece is I believe in giving everyone a voice, you
Mm.
know, in terms of how we do things.
Mm.
In other words, I believe that you have to listen and consider what other experts put in front of you.
Mm.
People know the industry. I always tell people I know business, but I don't know the business.
Mm.
See what I'm saying?
Different.
Well,
Mm.
I may exaggerate a little bit on that, but for the most part, I don't know the business. It's good if they're in the business, right? So I want to make certain that I get people that really know the business to be willing to stand up and espouse, what we should be doing different,
Mm.
or capture their input. So that's important. Then the third piece is I also believe in surrounding myself with folks that are much smarter than me in a lot of key areas. Like marketing's not my area. So I want key marketers around me, people that really understand marketing space,
Mm.
things like that. I need people around me that really understand sales cycle, sales compensation, those kind of things. I need people that understand that, right? And those kind of things. Uh, I know how to leverage those pieces, but I need the experts that really understand those spaces um, around me. You
Mm.
know,
The
uh,
nuts and bolts people. You need the nuts and bolts people
yeah,
to guide and put into motion. Yeah.
no doubt about it. They got to
Right.
do it.
Okay.
People that make things happen.
Talked about leadership on multiple levels, from international to domestic, from corporate to, now we got to go into the community. It's not all about the money, even
Mm,
though it's about the money. You also serve on the board of the Chambers McCain Foundation, which
yes,
supports youth and economic development.
yes,
This also ties in with cross-cultural communication, because I got 6 kids and they are an entire different culture.
yeah.
How does that work with Chambers McCain inform your belief in creator empowerment and access to opportunity?
Well, at Chambers McCain, we're I don't know if you know Julius Chambers and Franklin McCain were two uh, civil rights icons, from the 60s and 70s,
Hmm.
that resided in the Carolinas. One was at the North Carolina. I think Franklin was at the North Carolina counters. When they had the resistance, etc. Um, Back then, drinking from the soda fountain, all that kind of stuff, taking all that abuse. He was a North Carolina A&T student at the time.
Hmm.
I knew Mr. McCain. He was quite an interesting person. Matter of fact, I knew Julius too. I knew both of them, as a matter of fact. I knew
Mm.
both of those gentlemen. I had an opportunity to meet both of them. Very dynamic individuals. Julius was a civil rights attorney that won some significant cases that impacted, I don't know if it's voting rights or civil rights, but a variety of situations that impacted our folks. And so the foundation was founded with the permission of their family back in 2015. And since that time, I think 2015 or 2018, I'm not sure which year it was. Um, but since that time, I've served as treasurer of the foundation and a board member of the foundation. And our goal, we've given out well over, 150,000 dollars worth of scholarships, provided mentorship opportunities for young men, in leadership, by getting them exposed to high profile African American leaders in the community. And then we provide that mentorship through college for several of them, and they've gone to a variety of schools, whether it was Yale or A&T or uh, Central, North Carolina Central, and a bunch of other schools in between. So we've had an impact on all those students'
Mm.
lives. And so what we're doing, our goal is to create leadership and mentorship for those guys in the future. Now, one thing that I've learned from a creative standpoint in talking to some of the young men and their parents, because we interact with their parents as well, um, is there's a lot of creativity with these kids. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I talked to one kid that we sponsored, and his ultimate goal was to build computers. He wanted to develop and build out computers. So I think he wound up going to, I forgot which engineering school, it may have been in North Carolina A&T. He should be graduated by now. But that was his goal in life at the time. He was just a little teenager when we met him, him and his parents, and was talking to him. And we encouraged what he was doing going forward. Different things like that. So it's important to give back and to recognize that we are the basis of creativity in this country. And also, my thing is that um, we are creative people, and part of our mental and physical well-being is having the ability to express ourselves creatively.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how you look at it, whether it's not about making money necessarily. Some will break through and make money. You got the Ryan Coogans of the world that did extremely well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't. But what's important is their ability to express their creativity and have an avenue to do it. And that's kind of what, if anything drove from a community standpoint, that's where I kind of learned that's important.
Mm. Okay. Every venture is exciting to me. I come from a boring life.
I doubt
Yeah.
that.
And every time I step into something, new and that I hadn't thought of, I'm going, man, oh yeah, I could be contribute to that. And here we have, you joining JaroGO, which is, as you said, it's been a few years in development. It's coming out of beta soon and ready to be public facing at the beginning of next year, I think. Um, as JaroGo continues to grow, it's really clear you're building an infrastructure for the future. And we've covered it incrementally throughout this conversation. Um, what excites you most about the next chapter, both for the platform and the creators who are going to shape it?
Well, what excites me the most is the possibility of being successful.
Mm,
I mean, I've been fortunate in my career that well, I should say most everything that I've, been heavily engaged with and initiated in some of my corporate life have been very successful projects and programs that turned into multi-millions of dollars of revenue and profitability for the companies I work for.
mm,
You may not get credit for everything they've done, but there's certainly things that I can list out uh, that were impactful. So I can actually see this um, in that category as being something that's going to be successful. So for me, it's really about seeing the success and then seeing the impact it's going to have within our community.
mm,
It's going to provide opportunities, on not for, but, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, et cetera. It's going to provide a lot of opportunities for folk um, as we get more successful. So that would turn me on dramatically. Um, I would like to see a pipeline of key leaders in this space. It's a different space. I mean, I got to get people who think a little differently
mm,
about the industry.
mm,
I can't get to traditional thinkers in here because they'll destroy it.
mm.
So I'm, at least right now, that's the way I feel about it. So I need to get people more, so as we start identifying folks that can come in and actually run this and make it successful, um, I can get real excited about that. And, so seeing it successful will probably be the number one motivator and having an impact on the creator community and people in the industry. Um, that to me is very exciting. And when I say people, I'm talking our people
Understood.
have historically been, you know,
Shut out.
shut out to a degree. I mean, there's some opportunities, but it's been, limited. You got to be, certain folk to get certain opportunity, you know.
Mr. DeVaughn, this has been an amazing conversation. Um, you know, we journalists, we have a habit of asking what we want to ask and digging up things. Is there anything you wanted to cover that I may have neglected?
I can't think of anything that you may have neglected. But I guess from based on your observation and understanding of what we're trying to do, I would certainly like to get your perspective on, um, you know, what is it that you're observing about what we're doing that kind of, generates your interest in even having this interview.
Well, I mentioned earlier Bandcamp and some other platforms that are available for producers and DJs. But JaroGo, what I saw with JaroGo was a unique community of writers. And let me just, for context, one of my sons went to the University of Washington Film School. And coming out of university, he was scrambling. He and his friends, a bunch of college students were doing videos and making movies and documentaries and commercials, but everything was scattered. All the tools and resources and their ability to make money, they were scattered everywhere like a shotgun pattern.
Yeah.
So what drew me in was having a core foundation, the core, the hub in the middle of the wheel with a lot of spokes where they could expand, you know, from verticals like you said, merch, from being able to get the VOD, pay-per-view opportunities, to have a trusted spot where they could own the majority of the IP, get first count on their money, and get the support that you would have to normally buy. So I give for an example, Sony, and they're not paying me to promote them. Sony has Orchard, which
Mm.
is a distribution platform. It is the developmental arm of Sony. You can get a distribution deal if you've already sold, 10,000 units or whatever it is their requisite is. You can do that, but then if you want to get into the co-op marketing, if you want to, have a team inside of Sony push you out to Spotify playlisting, the editorial playlisting and things, these are all additional costs.
Of course.
Whether it is a larger distribution fee, you know, or an upfront cost where you pay for a marketing platform. You know,
Mm.
I remember I worked for a record label called Celeb Entertainment. It's defunct now. But we had to, they, I owned the street team who serviced the records from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. I We ran nationally. Um, and so they had to pay for pricing and positioning programs like Inside of Warehouse Records, which was no longer CD Baby. So we would go in and build the listening stations and the displays, the 3D displays, the in-store displays. And our gig was to check. And I would have a price list. Okay, they paid warehouse for this market, XYZ, to be eye level on this date from this date. And we had counter space and were all those things. But these were pieces that they were paid for. What I love about JaroGo is you're not paying extra. It's right here. And it's just revenue share,
Mm.
which is fair.
Mm. Well, it's eat what you kill. It's like it's not going to work for everybody, So when I say everybody, but those who really put an effort in building their brand and marketing themselves and monetizing themselves, this could be a boon for them. A boon.
Huge,
A huge
huge.
boon.
I'm looking at them like, if we could,
Yeah.
everybody's had a prior life, you know. If I
Hmm.
could be out on the street corner till 4:30 in the morning, hustling,
Yeah.
I can do that in the safety and comfort, you know, of my home, my studio,
Hmm.
and apply the same energy and dedication to making it.
Hmm.
It's just a different version of the game. One of the things that, you know, some heavy thinkers have said about street hustlers is that they could manage
Oh, no doubt
major
about it.
major corporations.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when I look at JaroGO, I'm going, man, for podcasters, for people who do visual content, you know, videos and things like that, this is an amazing opportunity to bring your audience to somewhere where you own your data, unlike being on Meta. You own your contact list.
Yes.
It's a very secure uh, platform. You know, it's got all the SSL certificates and everything that
Not at
make
all.
sure that you don't get hacked, and you know that your IP isn't stolen. Very secure. Um, and then I looked at the content and the guidance that you and Lynn are putting out on the economic structure, on marketing, on how to, and I'm going, the founders are involved, you know, and participating and
Hmm.
sharing freely, you know, uh, their knowledge and wisdom. So you're getting the mentorship organically just because you care.
Hmm.
This is more than a business. What I feel is that this is more than a business. It's really an opportunity. It's accomplished people, professionals, exercising and showing corporate citizenship, and corporate citizenship within inside the entertainment space, within inside the creator economy, changing the conversations that allow me to talk to my daughter about monetizing her content
Hmm.
as a nail tech. This is how you brand. Here's an opportunity. You got unique designs and this, that, and the third. Thank God she's in college because I don't have to deal with her every day. But she's understanding
Yeah.
now more what I'm seeing. And what I really enjoy is I can take JaroGo as a case study in one of my research papers and say, here's the who, what, when, where, why. And this is the infrastructure that made it work. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you know, within I can see, you know, in forward thinking, I could project in the next 2 years being able to do an impact report, you know, and say, this is what happened, this is how it started, this is how it developed, and this is where we are. And
Hmm.
then, you know, just like um any prospectus for, you know, a stock or something like that, I can do my forward-looking statements.
That's right.
And I think that I'm going to be really on point. I'm excited, you know, about the ability for the creators to come and have control. Excited for them to get mentorship and learn financial responsibility. You don't need a $50,000 chain if you get in advance. Earlier on, you said that you invest in people that you believe in or projects, and you know in your heart, perhaps, that the chance of a return on that investment is small to none. But you're doing it for them because you believe in them.
Right.
JaroGo is a platform that shows the belief of accomplished professionals inside of the entertainment industry that smaller creators can make it. They can learn how to monetize, and we can pass it on and prevent the gatekeepers like Netflix from absorbing all of the juice out the damn steak.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, it won't be much left. If at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
hit the
don't
nail
want the
on the
bones in the skeleton of the fish. I need some fish too. I need some of that walleye.
head.
You
I need
know
a
what I
little
mean?
fish. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that was my thought
I,
and
I,
my
appre-
evaluation of JaroGO.
I appreciate hearing that. Speaking of that, you did trigger one thing where you asked for differentiation. One of the differentiators that we have is like I'm a tech person, a business person. Like I said, I know the business, but I don't know. I mean, I know business, but I don't necessarily know the business.
Right.
My other partners know the business. They're in the business. They've been in the business for years.
Mhm.
That's why the matches. I mean, I know streaming and those kinds of things and the technology associated with doing that and doing it well.
Mhm.
But when it comes to engaging with creators, knowing what their needs are, being able to work with them from the concept of an ideal all the way down to the point of producing the product, marketing the product, distributing the product. My partners do it well, and those are gaps, that I think every creator is looking for. How do I get my ideal to the point where everybody can appreciate it? Because one thing that's I say people want to live to create again, but they also want people to appreciate what they're doing.
Mm.
I
Mm.
have, I have
Mm.
relatives that are musicians, for example, and my cousin sends me his music productions ahead of time. Say, well, what do you think? He really cares about what I think about his music,
Mm. Mm.
and he's really good. I mean, it's like, yeah, yeah. But so he appreciates that, and I think the same thing applies to filmmakers, authors, and artists, any type of creator in this creator economy. So having an outlet where they can get feedback on what they do just kind of really encourages their mental state,
Mm.
and their ability to stay creative and be who they are, be
Mm.
true to themselves. So most people have other jobs and stuff that they hate, but they love being a creator because they love that part of what they do.
Mm.
You know, and so we want to even facilitate that.
That's amazing. Look, you get an opportunity to not hate pushing the button or putting the key in the ignition to go to work.
Hmm.
It's a metaphor, y'all.
Yeah.
Think about it. We'll revisit it. You can stay tuned because we're going to have some amazing follow-ups on JaroGo and the amazing creators of this platform. Some other stuff. I am. They've got one original production that's in production right now. Uh, Two preachers on a mission,
Yes.
something similar like that. I've
Yeah.
seen the clips. It's fun.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. So not only, folks, are they housing original creations from others, they're also giving others an opportunity to produce original content through JaroGo platform.
Yes.
They've got the infrastructure, the post production, look, everything you need. When you say one stop shop, we've already on this particular, we've talked about financing earlier.
We financed it. We're producing it. We're going to distribute it on our platform. We're going to provide distribution for that product on other platforms beyond ourselves. You never know what you never know what's going to really be big.
Yeah.
You just don't. But we got good feelings about this one. The actors are enthusiastic. Our cost of production is reasonable. Um, you know, and so this is a good one.
It's
You
fun.
know, this is a good one. It's fun, and I was looking at some of the feedback from some of the actors and characters in the production, and I'll tell you,
Mm,
they're
mm,
so excited
mm,
about just doing this,
mm,
right?
mm.
You know, again, it's going to allow them to take their creativity to another level. Because one of the things that we do offer that we didn't mention, most actors want to be singers. Most singers want to be actors, right?
Athletes want to be rappers.
Athletes want to be rappers. So, okay, so we facilitate all of that, right?
Ah, right.
Yeah, we facilitate that and actually encourage it,
Mm, mm.
right?
when we talk about monetization, one thing, and I'm sorry, you sparked something else for me.
Oh, okay.
Um, One of the big topics in the music world is sync licensing.
hmm
How will that work with JaroGo products, like especially your original uh productions?
Well, two ways. One, we would conform to the requirements of sync licensing.
Okay.
As long as, we're able to receive that ability to license that music, we will. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's important to the artists that have music that they get paid within the system that pays them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, we also want to provide the opportunity for independents who are not part of that, who are building it. We want to build a pipeline of musicians and talented people who aren't necessarily at the level where they got record deals and they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
constrained, or they don't want to be constrained. They want to be independent. So we want to accommodate that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Both both sides. So we're not fighting the status quo because that's what it is. But certainly there's a little bit of disruptive opportunity for independents
Mm-hmm.
who really don't otherwise have a track to get to where they possibly could get. There's so much talent out there. It's just a matter how do you identify a breakout? And we want to be the home of breakout talent because that's going to create loyalty with our platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they can break out, become huge, but they'll always remember from where they came for the most part.
I would say, and I always try to add in a career trajectory point here.
hmm
If you are a musician, or if you know a bunch of musicians and you're linked in, JaroGo is a great place to meet directors.
hmm
It's a great place to meet producers,
hmm
screenwriters, etc. If you had ever thought of the career trajectory of music director, having a database of music that you can send to directors who are looking for music for new productions and things, even directly to JaroGo for their original, JaroGo has a place for you. I've
That's
just
right.
been evaluating and breaking it down. This is an ecosystem for real,
For real.
for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Check it out. I'm not, telling you to sign up, pay nothing, but if you are serious about moving forward in this new era between AI, LLMs, and the gathering of power, resources, and tools by the large entities to further control the narrative and to further gatekeep,
hmm
JaroGo gives you a workaround and a legitimate way to move forward in a sustainable, non-hostile environment with complete support, marketing, promotion, distribution, revenue share, a store, 5 key points. Everybody says you need at least 5 revenue streams. Well, that's just the first 5. I
hmm
can name another 5 off the top of my head, and they haven't even launched officially yet.
That's true. The exclusive content piece of it, you know,
There's a lot. Um,
endorsements. There's a lot.
oh, let me go on ahead and break this down. This is JARO is your part. Go is Lynn and Wayne's last name.
Yeah.
JaroGO Media, part of JARO Nexus LLC. We'll talk more about that business stuff later on down the line. Y'all can sign up for Richard's symposiums and get some education and have some fun. Amazing group of gentlemen who thought this out, impressed me, stopped me in my tracks once I found out about it. And I'm like, I'm in. Let's go. We'll talk more about it Later.
Take it.
Until next time. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.